So good afternoon, everybody. I hope you are okay. I hope everyone can get me clearly, or maybe there's a problem with the audio.
Yeah, clear.
Okay, so we're going to start with the Bilan, which in English is the balance sheet. Then we're going to proceed later on to something. So whenever I say something that you are not clear on or do not understand, please stop me there, and then it's easier for me to make a clarification there and then rather than later on. So first things first, we are going to start with a definition. So the Bilan, by definition, is a table which shows the financial position of a business as at a given date. So yeah, that should always be part of the definition. One of the key phrases, one of the key words in the definition should be, firstly, that it's a table, and secondly, that it shows the financial position at a given date, so which is usually 1 year. So yeah, first gotten out of. So then this table is established in, it's a pretty simple table to draw. It has the right hand side and the left hand side. In just a minute, I'm going to show you how we draw it and go about naming the things. So, but firstly, okay, here's an illustration of it. So yeah, this is the Bilan. It's nothing really complicated. So we have the active side and the passive side, which in other terms would be the active side being the debit side and the passive side being the credit side. So, petite explication. Les emplois, the active side is also referred to as les emplois, and the passive side is also referred to as the ressources. So this Bilan is made in such a way that it has classes. So it goes all the way from class 1 to class 5. You don't just jumble things. So class 1 is le financement permanent. Le financement permanent is, rather, the financial earnings you have either by yourself or you brought in from another company, which should be repayable after a period of 1 year. So yeah, that's the difference really between the financement permanent and le passif sécular. It's the period of repayment. So, and the second one is the active Immobilizer, which comprises of fixed assets, which are immovable fixed assets. Excuse me?
Yes, can you kindly just repeat the explanation for financement permanent?
Okay, financement permanent. Cool. So financement permanent are dates. I would say them as dates. Dates, investments, simply all the resources that we use to start a business that are brought in from either ourselves or our partners. So the financement permanent, from the name permanent, is that they last within a business for a period of more than 1 year. So that's really the thing that distinguishes them from the other types of financement. They last within a business for a period of 1 year and above, strictly 1 year and above. Then we go to the second class. I'm just going to quickly say the classes and what really they encompass. Then later on, I'm going to show you where you put this, where you put that, and what really falls under what. So the second one is active, class 2 is active Immobilizer. Active Immobilizer comprises of fixed assets that the business possesses. So, and usually what happens is that you use the class 1 things to buy the class 2 things. Like you You have capital, you have loans. So what you do with the capital and the loans is to start the business. So use elements from the class 1 to acquire elements from the class 2. Then we move on to the third class, which is active secular. So active secular comprises of current assets that are bought for the main purpose of resale or for the main purpose of making profit out of them. They are not really bought to stay in a business for a long period of time. So that's it for the third one. And for the fourth one, the class 4, it's passive secular or treasury. So what is passive secular? These are dates, finances, and investments that last within a business for a period less than 1 year, strictly less than 1 year. So here we have a difference between class 1, which is financement permanent, and class 4. So class 4 is the direct opposite of class 1. Then we have class 5, which is treasury active. This one comprises of...
Excuse me?
Yes?
Could you kindly repeat the explanation for class 4?
Class 4, okay. Class 4, the passive secular. It's called passive secular, and it comprises of finances, dates, and investments that are brought in from other people into our business, which last within our business for a period of less than 1 year. So that's really the difference. So financement permanent, they last for a period of more than 1 year, and passive secular, they last for a period of less than 1 year. So yeah, that's it for class 4. Class 5, I repeat, is le trésorerie actif. This one comprises of methods of payment and how you as a business keep your money. So it would encompass things like cash in hand, cash in bank, and so the suite. Then we have the last one, which is class 5. So 5 is divided into 2. We have 5.1 and 5.5. So 5.1 is the one which falls under the active side, and 5.5 is the one which falls under the passive side. So le trésorerie passif is just methods of payment, small methods of payment, or small debts, really small debts. They are not even it's not adequate to classify them under the financement permanent nor the passive secular. So they are really small payments. So that's it for, I should say, a résumé the classement. Now we look at what goes where, and yeah, so we start with the active side. I don't know if you can see the mouse. Yes, so starting with the active side. So things in the Bilan are placed from how hard they are to convert into cash. So I'm not going to use financial terms yet, so to make it easier for you to understand. So we have the way that placed, like from top going to down, is how hard they are to convert into cash. So we have the first one at the topmost is the one in green, is class 2, which is active immobilizer. So these active immobilizer, like I said before, they are fixed assets. They are durable assets. So these durable assets like cars, land, buildings, these things are not easily converted into cash. In fact, they are not for the purpose of converting them into cash unless an unforeseen condition. So that's for the first one. But under this one, we have subdivisions, which we will look at later on. I think I'll send you an example of how really it's going to be shown. So it reads from the top: l'intention de l'entreprise est de garder les biens pour une longue durée. Yeah, so just like I said, the intention of having the active Immobilizer is to keep them in a business for a long period of time. So hope that's clear for the class 2. Then we go just below that to class 3. I hope you can see the, let me try to. Okay, yeah, so class 3 is the active secular. So the active secular encompasses goods mainly bought for the purpose of resale. So they are not to stay in a business for a period more than, they're not to stay in a business for more than 1 year. So they should always strictly be sold or liquidated before a period of 1 year reaches. So this encompasses things like merchandise, opening stock, finished products, raw materials, dates, small dates, daters, yeah, to some clients who are to pay us back within a period of 1 year. So it reads l'emploi séculaire non durable or momentaire, durée une année, moins une année. So yeah, just like I said, these are strictly to last in a business for a period of less than 1 year. So I hope that's clear for the first 2 sides of the active side, which is class 2 and class 3. Okay, cool. So moving on to the 5th one, which is class 5 on the active side. We're still on the active side. So yeah, this class 5, it encompasses methods of payment and how the enterprise generally keeps its money. So there are things like cash in bank, cash at hand. Yeah, that's it. So it says it is la liquidité disponible chez l'entreprise. So yeah, that's just money and methods of payment that are available to an enterprise. So then we have this blue arrow. I don't know if you can see it. It draws all the way from there going to the bottom. So what this line is just
Sorry for disturbing. Can you kindly please repeat what you said, because we had a little bit of internet connection problem.
Okay. So class 5. I guess it's on class 5. Where I need to repeat.
Yes, after you explained the active secular something, then the following thing.
Okay, ça va. So class 5.
You can start from.
Class 5, which is called Treasury active. This one encompasses methods of payment or just means of keeping money that are available to an enterprise. So it reads quickly. It says la liquidité disponible chez l'entreprise. So which is just money available to an enterprise. And examples are cash in hand and cash at bank. So yeah, that's it. Then we have this, as I was saying before, we have this blue arrow which draws all the way from the top to the bottom. It just simply illustrates the order of arrangement of things. In business terms, it's called la Cretia De Liquidite, which simply means the least liquid possessions of a business should be placed at the top. Liquidité in this term would be how easy it is to convert the goods or the resources in question into cash. So for the first one, the active Immobilizer comprises of vehicles it's not really easy to sell off a vehicle to another person because of costs and tusa. So we place, that's the reason why active Immobilizer is placed at the top, then followed by active secular because it has things like goods bought for the purpose of resale. Those are easily converted to cash, so which makes them fall under the second place. And lastly, we have cash itself. So if we're talking about how easy something is to change into cash, and something's already cash, it means it's the easiest. So here we're just talking of the last one, which is class 5. We're just simply talking of cash itself and cash in bank. So that summarizes it for the left-hand side of the Bilan, which is the active side. Hope I'm clear. So moving on to the passive side, which is the right-hand side. So the passive side comprises of the resources. So like I said before, the resources are what we use to buy les emplois. So here would be the means of the money that, so this passive side would be the money that the business owns, the business has either brought in by itself or borrowed from another enterprise or partners. So firstly, the order of the passive side is how hard a loan or a repayment is to convert or to pay it back. So the first one being financement permanent is, I should say, the hardest to pay back because you get it in usually a large sum of amount and you are to pay it back in a period of over 1 year. So it's strictly over 1 year. It could be 2 years, 3 years, you just can't finish. So this one encompasses things like, which is the class 1, financement permanent. It has things like dates, loans from banks, loans from people of huge amounts. And yes, strictly that. So we have les emprunts obligatoires, which are just loans, les emprunts après établissement, which are just loans. And at the top of these in class 1, we have capital. So the reason why capital is the most difficult to pay back is because we ourselves put the capital into a business. So we do not expect to take it out, but rather maybe just make a profit from what we had put. So reason being for that, capital is at the top. So that's it for the class 1, which is a financement permanent. I hope I'm clear. Then we move on to the class 4, which is the passive.
What did you say about capital? I had the network issue, so I didn't get you clearly.
So capital is the sum of money that is the most difficult to pay back. Reason being is that we ourselves, as the people who start the business, invest the capital. So we do not expect to take it out. So that money is strictly to be used in the business, but we are to make profits out of that capital. So capital is an amount of money we will never pay back to anyone. So it's gone. And for that reason, it is the most difficult to pay back. In other words, it's impossible to pay back unless capital borrowed from other people. But the capital we ourselves invest is impossible to pay back.
Oh, okay, thanks. So capital falls under class 1, financement permanent?
Yes, class 1.
Yes,
it's the first one. Okay, cool. So we have the following class is class 4, and which is passive secular. So this one encompasses dates, loans, small dates, small loans, which are to be paid back within a period of less than 1 year. So these are slightly easier to pay back because they're usually not substantial amounts, and we are to repay them within a period of 1 year. So this one has things like a loan from a furnisher. A furnisher is a provider. We have salaries. We owe people salaries. All these things, they fall under passive secular. And lastly, we have the class 5, which is the Treasury passive. So these are also dates, but really small dates. But so if you notice something, the passive, it's only filled up with dates. So it just matters in how easy they are to pay back. So the last one is, it reads from there, les dates à court terme. So they're really, really small dates. So that summarizes it for the Bilan. If there are any questions, any concerns, s'il vous plaît, les poser. Okay, so I have to show you another illustration of, did I put that other bit? Oh, just a minute, I'm looking for the other one that I had planned to show you. It's not this one. Where did I leave it? Voila. This one shows what we actually, the subdivisions of, so this one shows how exactly we places things. Like I said before, we have subdivision. So starting from the active Immobilizer, the left-hand side, we have immobilisation incorporelle and corporelle. So incorporelle, these are fixed assets that are intangible fixed assets like funds commercial, which would be something like clientele. I don't know if you know what that means. Then we have immobilisation corporelle. These are tangible fixed assets like a vehicle, furniture in a building itself, land, tout ça. Then we have active immobilisé financier. So these would be auctions. These are just
Tasala.
Relax. Sorry, I had a problem with my connection. So, just a minute, I reshare everything. Where did I end? On what did topic or what did the network break on?
Financier.
Okay, cool. So, starting with the active secular, we have things like stock. We have opening stock, closing stock, TUSA, and clients. We have dates from clients. We have clients themselves, TUSA, and these other ones, you won't really do them for the first semester. I think they come about a bit later on. So moving on to the right-hand side, which is the capital prop. So the first one is capital social. Capital social is the capital that we ourselves put into the business. The one which I was saying comes first because we will never get it out of the business because it is the business itself. Then we have les réserves. Les réserves c'est tout simplement, ce sont des choses, sorry, it's like money that we borrow from other people to keep into our business just for safeguarding. In case there's an emergency, we would have something to quickly rely on. And moving on to, so the last two. We have report à nouveau. Report à nouveau is le résultat. Le résultat, we'll look at this further on when we start doing the CPC. We'll need it there as well as here later on. So we move on to the debt secular, which in other terms is the passive secular. Here we have dates, we have small dates, les emprunts. We have fournisseur. The fournisseur is a provider. So it could be a provider of goods. It depends on which angle you're looking at it from. If it's from, there's always a provider and a client. So a provider is anyone who's providing goods. And the rest we will not need to look at them. So another thing I forgot to mention is that the passive, the total, like from the top of the active side to the bottom of the active side, we're going to have figures until the end. So the total of those figures should be an amount that will equal to the total of the figures on the passive side. So if there is a difference, that's where we would start having things like le résultat. So here the totals should always be equal. Though there are circumstances where the totals are not equal, in that case, you'd have to find the difference between the two figures and you name that the difference between the two as résultat. So it could be résultat positif, soit négatif, ça dépend. But the usual case is that the right-hand side, which is the passive side, should never be more than the right-hand side, because you use the money from the left-hand side to buy goods on the right-hand side. But in a situation where you can't buy goods for money that you don't have, let's say something costs, you have 10,000 kwacha in 10,000 dirhams in your account, you cannot buy something which costs 12,000 dirhams unless you get another loan. Yes, so that's the logic behind all of this.
Excuse me.
Julius, sorry
Yes,
to take you back, but can you start again from active circular?
active secular. Oh, okay. There was a network problem or something. Okay, cool. There was another question, if I'm not mistaken.
It's okay. I think I'll be answered as you explain.
Okay, cool. So, starting from active secular. Wait, active secular all the way to the passive side, or maybe just active secular to the bottom?
All the way.
Okay. So, active secular. We have the first one being stock. Here we have things like stock. These are goods that are bought for the purpose of resale. We have things like stock in hand, stock. Yeah, stock, closing stock, opening stock. We have things like that. And secondly, we have clients. Clients, these are people who owe us money. They haven't yet paid us an amount which they owe us. And we have the rest of them, créances sociales, créances fiscales, créances diverses. You will not use them for the first semester. So stock and clear should be enough to help you with your understanding of the Bilan. Then we move on to le capital propre, which is the right-hand side, the passive side of the Bilan. And firstly, we have le capital social. This is the capital that we have, the capital that we as the business owners invest. So this capital is placed at the top because no one will ever get it out of the business. It is strictly the business's money. So then we have les réserves. Les réserves are amounts of money that we have kept aside in case of an unforeseen situation or something. We always have something to fall back on. Then we have le résultat de l'année. It's the same as le report à nouveau, the one and the same. So le résultat des années is the difference between the active and the passive side. So this difference should be, like I explained before. So the total, we have a total of all the things that we add up from the active side, this whole column, if I can call it that, we have a total. And from the right hand side, which is the passive side, we have a total as well. So in a situation where these two aren't equal, we would have an amount which should be a difference. So that difference is either positive or negative in the sense that it's placed under capital propre. So if, like I said before, the passive side comprises of money that we as a business have, and the active side has the things that we buy from the money that we have. So it isn't normal or natural to buy more things than the money that we have unless you borrow it from an unknown source. But usually the passive side is supposed to be greater than the active side because you can't spend more than what you have. That's the logic. Drawing on to the debt secular, we have les emprunts as the first one. Les emprunts are just loans, either from people or from a business, another business, or from the bank. It really depends on where you get them from. That's where the name is drawn from. Then we have the fournisseur. The fournisseur, these are providers of goods. So the fournisseur in this case would be the direct opposite of le client. So in a case where someone buys goods on credit, that person who the client has bought goods from is the fournisseur because he's still owing that person an amount of money. And to the fournisseur, the person who hasn't paid the amount in full is a client. He owes him money. So Then the rest, the social, the fiscal, the divers, you won't really need them for the premier semester. So that's it. I don't know if I have to re-explain something again, but please, if I do, make it clear.
Sorry, Charlie, can you please explain the fournisseur and client, what you said?
Okay, so in a case where someone buys goods from another person and that person hasn't paid the full amount, or he has asked the person that he will pay later on a later date, maybe month end or something. So in that sort of situation, the client, the person who didn't pay the full amount is called the client. And the person who provided the goods, the seller, who did not receive the full amount and let the client go off with some money, is called a fournisseur. So we have a situation where someone is the provider, a fournisseur, and the person who was provided the goods with is a client because he's still owing some money. So I don't know if that makes it clear, or maybe.
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay, cool.
Then you said that debt secular is the same as passive secular.
Yes, exactly the same.
So does that mean capital prop is the same as financement permanent?
Yes, exactly.
Okay. Then on this Bilan, we don't add the class 5, the small methods of payment.
No, usually those we don't really add them. We add them on the active side, but on the passive side, there are no really dates that are small enough to fall under the small dates.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, cool. So if that's it. Yes?
I have a question.
You said that
Hello?
yeah, you said that the active side should always be less than the passive side, isn't it?
Yes, that's a natural circumstance.
Oh, okay. But can you have a situation whereby the active side becomes larger than the passive side?
Yes, that is true. Yes, there are situations like that, but in the real world, that isn't logical because you cannot spend more money than you have.
Okay.
I heard another question. I don't know if it's true.
My question that I wanted to ask is the same question that he's asked, and you have answered it. Thank you.
Okay, welcome.
Chole, you said if the active side and the passive side, the amount aren't equal, the amount will go to what?
It goes to le résultat. It's called le résultat.
Okay, thank you.
So I'm going to try to work out an example.
Sorry, is that the same as sold or it's different?
It's the same logic as sold, except it's not called sold in this situation.
Oh, okay. Then how do you know that you're supposed to find the resultant?
Résultat.
Yes, like would it be stated in a question?
Well, yes, but they take it that it's logic. If the thing is that the right hand side and the left hand side should always be balanced, like the totals, the final totals. In a situation where they are not equal, they take it that you'll be able to take the initiative to find the résultat.
Oh, okay. So how does someone know
So
if
sometimes if there's a résultat. So here where we have immobilisation corporelle, we have figures. It's usually like a table. I think an example would really help you understand. So they're usually figures that when you write, you have to know what is placed where and the figure it goes with. So we have, I think I have something like an example here. Okay, so yeah, this one. So this is how the question would be asked. And they'll just tell you, travail à faire, établir le bilan. So these are the subdivisions I was talking about. Acquisition de fonds commercial, it comes with an amount. Acquisition done local, it comes with an amount. So these small subdivisions, they have where they fall under this main table. This is the simplest form of the table. So they have where they fall and they come with amounts attached to them. So you add the amounts, so if we had amounts there, and this other side we have amounts there. So we'd add up the figures on the left hand side strictly to the end, from top to bottom to the end. We would have a total, and on the right hand side on the passive, would add the figures up from the top to the bottom as well, and we'll have a total. So these totals, they are supposed to be equal. Should always be equal. In a situation where they are not equal, that's how we know that we have a résultat.
Okay. What if someone, let's say, makes a mistake in the additions, and then, yeah.
Oh, a mistake is a mistake, as my professor would say. So if you make a mistake in the additions and you find wrong figures, everything will be wrong. Everything would be really wrong, because what they do when correcting a paper, they just go to the total. They just look at two things really. So you'd have to establish all these things, put them in order, all these things, and your professor would only look at the total at the bottom and le résultat. So if these two are correct, it means everything else is correct. If they are not, they can just, zero. Just give you a zero, which is very unfair. Okay, so if that's clear, I think we should have a break. We have talked enough, and so 10 minutes break. We'll be back at 13:05. It's cool?
Yes, it's cool.
Yes, thank you.
All right, so 13:05 it is. Yeah, so I hope you can get me. I hope I'm very audible. Okay, so now we are going to look at what is called the CPC. It's an abbreviation for the words le compte de produits et les charges. So
Okay, just before we proceed to that,
yes,
I have a question.
yes, please.
Yeah, so I'll give more like a reference. I want to ask
Okay.
whereby I have a building,
Yes.
then then I decide to start a business. Now I turn that building into a business apartment.
Okay.
So how are you going to record that building? Are you going to put it as a fixed asset, or you are going to estimate its value and record it in under capital, or what?
Okay, so first things first is that buildings, we call buildings premises in Francais. Then secondly, if you bought the building, you would have an estimated value of it, which you would record that as premises, which would fall under the fixed asset column. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So now we're going to look at something we call the CPC, which is the compte des produits et les charges. It's sort of a continuation from the Bilan. You usually do the Bilan first, then you do the CPC. It's in that order. So, like I said, the Bilan uses class 1 to 5, and this one uses class 6, 7, and 8. Though 8 it's just for rare occasions, but class 6 and 7. So I'm not sure if most of you have bought the red book yet, but these classes I'm referring to are how the French system, or rather the Moroccan system, classifies certain accounts. Like let's say you buy something, which is achat des produits. They have a specific number which corresponds to that. It's something I would call an accounting language. So if you were just to see le compte class 6, 3 ans, you'd know that it's achat de produit, achat de marchandises, sorry. So yeah, it's sort of an accounting language. There are numbers which have words that are attached to them. So you master the numbers and master what they represent. So firstly, the CPC runs with 3 classes, sorry. It runs under class 6, 7, and 8. So it's a continuation from the Bilan. So here as well, we have a résultat, but here the résultat is not the same as the résultat I had mentioned before from the Bilan. So you really have to pay attention to how things change in relation to the topic you are doing. So here, the résultat represents something, it's the same concept, but not exactly. So le résultat is what we have, something called produit. Produit, I would explain these as gains, like you sell something, you make money off it. Those are gains of money. Then le charge, I would explain those as expenses. You have monthly bills, you have electricity bills, you have to pay your workers. All those fall under under the les charges. So
Sorry,
we have
Lola, can you please repeat?
on the both of them.
Yes.
Okay, so we have les produits and les charges. So I'll start with les produits. Les produits are gains. You sell something, like gains of money. You sell something. You sell goods. The money you make out of selling something. That's what we term as les produits. Products, in short. So, and les charges, these are expenses like monthly bills, salaries for workers, maintenance fee, cleaning, and so the suite. So hope that's clear. So we have, it's just simply a book which we record our expenses and our incomes to make things clear. So firstly, we have here, it says les notions de charges et les produits. This is basically what I have just explained, except that under these same produits, they come in two types as well. We have le produit d'exploitation and we have le produit financier. So same thing applies with les charges. Or if you are lost anywhere, please do not hesitate to stop me. So under les produits and under les charges, under each of them, we have what we call le produit d'exploitation et le produit de financier. And under les charges, also, we have les charges d'exploitation and we have les charges financiers. So those are the two main ones. So le produit, what it simply means, d'exploitation et financier. D'exploitation, these are things that are directly related to how we run the business on a day-to-day basis. And le financier would just strictly concern the money aspect. But le exploitation deals with the actual business. Like exploitation is, in other words, is like what you do on a day-to-day basis. So hope that's clear.
Sorry to take you back. Can you explain again on the produit financier?
The produits financiers are simply gains of money or incomes that are attached to direct finances. They don't involve selling goods and services. Maybe you invest in a company and you gain some returns from the investment. That would be classified under le produit financier. So here we have some. Oh, here it reads. I don't know if you can see. So from where the cursor is, it reads, le cycle d'exploitation comprend l'ensemble des opérations nécessaires à la réalisation des activités normales et habituelles de l'entreprise. So, like I said, it's directly related to how you run the business on a day-to-day basis, the decisions to some. So these are what I was saying. So, achat des marchandises. This is a number or the class strictly attached to it. So in other situations, you can just find on an accounting document, it's just written this. Like there's no word to as the definition of what account is being spoken of. They just write this, but you have to understand the accounting language and know that this means achat des marchandises. So yeah.
Cholo,
Yes.
I have a question.
Yes.
For under produit d'exploitation and produit financier, where does interest fall under? Since I don't know if I got you clearly, but you said basically produit d'exploitation, these are what used to run the business and so on. Then produit financier, you're talking about the other part. So I wanted to ask, for instance, if you're talking about interest, maybe you give out as an enterprise, for instance, if you're in the business of giving out loans and whatnot, the interest that you gain, does that fall under produit financier?
Yes, it was
Oh,
actually the point I was going to go to next.
okay.
So here it reads, les éléments financiers, c'est nouveau comprendre les produits et les charges de nature financière. So, like Davis's example, sorry. The things that are, like when we use money to make more money, that is classified as financier, because there are no goods or services that were offered or sold to gain money. It was strictly using money to make more money. So that sort of situation is classified as a financier sort of situation. So then lastly, we have non-courant non-courant, les éléments non-courant or non-circulating in English. So it reads from there, les éléments non courants, il s'agit des opérations qui ne relèvent pas à l'activité ordinaire de l'entreprise ou qui peut modifier sa structure. So this one is strictly not related to the direct or ordinary ways of running a business. So it's not related to using money to make money or directly related to selling goods and services to make money. It has its own category. We would call this as maybe exceptions of the two, but they still fall under the CPC. So that's it for the definitions. I don't know if there's any clarification needed to be made. Boss.
Julie, can you explain on les éléments financiers one more time, please?
Okay, so les éléments financiers, it's like using. Okay, so I think helping you understand the difference would really cut the point. So les éléments d'exploitation, this is using goods and services to, like, you sell them, then the money you make out of it would be classified as that, because you actually sold something you have in order to make money. So then when we come to les éléments financiers, it's using money to make money. And a clear-cut example of this would be giving out loans. So you give out a loan to someone and you tell them to pay with an interest rate of 20% of the amount they got. So that extra 20%, you never sold any goods nor offered any services, but you used money to make more money. That is classified as a financier sort of arrangement. Yes, so I had another question.
Is a CPC also found in English or it's just in French?
Oh, this one is strictly in French. So
okay.
I think I have a YouTube channel I used to learn these things from, because the professors usually just, the things that the Moroccans are going to be with, they already know these things. It's revision for them. So you as a beginner, let alone someone who is struggling with the language, things really don't come up that easy. But anyway, that was just my situation. I hope it won't be yours. But I will look for a YouTube channel I used to use in my first semester to really take my time to understand these concepts and the like. So I will send it over. I think in the evenings I must have it somewhere. So we move on to, okay, so I think I should repeat on something we did on the cons. someone asked me a question which was really valuable. So the counts, like I said before, we have right hand side and the left hand side, and we have figures on both sides. So the figures are supposed to be equal. The totals of those figures are supposed to be equal. In a situation where we don't have an égalité, we have what is called the solde. So the solde will act as, the solde is something we carry on. I forgot to mention the part where I was saying we decrease and increase by adding figures on the same side or on the opposite side. There we have, so the solde is what counts. So do not focus on the totals. The totals, you just use them to find the solde. So the solde is what we carry on to another document we call a journal. So these documents, they come interlinked. So if you really have to learn the build up, they start from the Bilan, you go to the CPC, you go to the journals, you go to you go to the first, after the journals, you go to the balance. I think they are about 5 or 6 in counting documents that you have to prepare, usually from one question. So I will see how I can incorporate that. So what I forgot to mention is that the solde is what counts. So if we have an égalité on the right hand side, so here I'll take example this count. So we have figures here, right? We have figures, they add up to 10,000 there, and we have figures there, they add up to 10,000. So if we have 10,000, 10,000, that's cool. If we have 10,000 on the left-hand side and on the right-hand side, we have 5,000. So the solde in this case is 5,000 because the difference between 10 and 5 is 5. So that 5,000 is what we will carry on into the next document, which I will explain later on if we have time. So I think that's it on the CPC. There's really not much, except you have to see how it looks like, how you draw it. I don't know if there's a clear-cut example in this book, or maybe. Just a minute. I'm looking for a much simpler example for you. Okay, this example will not be found here. Let me just do this. So yeah, I have an example here with me. I hope it's clear. No, it's not. I think I'll just send over an image after this. So now we are going to look at what is called the journal lastly. I think just 15 minutes or so, and we should be done. So the journal, like the others, is an accounting document as well. We call them état de synthèse in French. So it's an accounting document as well, where we record things that we got from the Bilan, things that we got from the CPC. We carry them onto the journal. So the journal is as well, it's not there in this book, sadly. And the book I have is, I have a hard copy, polycopy, so I'm not sure how I can present that to you. Maybe send you a PDF of it after I scan it or something like that. Okay, yeah, so I guess we're going to end here because I can't seem to find any example I can use that's adequate to show you what I meant to explain. So do you have any questions, any concerns that you'd like me to clarify, or it's okay? Hello, are there any questions or voice very clear?
I think everything is clear.